understand this stuff. I've been learning and studying and doing all this work for 10 years now, and you would think that I have it down. I understand the difference between FAFSA and CSS profile. FAFSA is for federal, the free application federal student aid. CSS profile is more institutional. So I have a couple of questions for you. I have a couple of families this year who have money that went into a trust to pay for the kids' education. If you have money, should you even apply for FAFSA and CSS profile? And it's tricky because if a college has an endowment and they would give your child that money, because both of these students have really great grades, really great test scores. They're the kind of student that a college would want to have. But should the parents even apply having this money set aside for them?
It's good scenarios, very good scenarios. So there's a variety of things that come to my mind that you need to put in play now and through the process. Okay. So depending upon the amount of money, as we've talked before, my big thing is if you have buying power, you put that buying power to work for you. And buying power can be the student in the right scenario, the right setting. And buying power is your financial resources to come into play. Okay. So going into the process, if you're looking at the various profiles of the student, the family, the schools that are part of the interest, you have to put all that into the equation. Okay.
Because there's
and we know
variables will be different because
every one of those
is different.
Every one of those will be different. Every school will be different. Every scenario, every viewer, every reading, everything we think that the school should do, because our student is our student, and the system should not look at how much money we have. They should look at the student and want that student and be willing to pay for that student to come and sit in their seat and take their enrollment. So I think that wherever we are on the spectrum, buying power or lack of, as consumers, we need to be better at looking at things that apply to our family. And unfortunately, we still live in a system or a society that puts so much emphasis on certain things that I could be at either end of the spectrum and still think I'm getting screwed. Okay. Or someone's not looking at me the right way or putting it into play the right way. I was just speaking to a parent before we got on the call, and she asked me, our son reaches a certain plateau academically, and we don't, on paper, have any resources available, so we think we have high need. Why wouldn't he be eligible for a full ride at any school? And part of that answer is based on the school's enrollment strategy, that we can only give full rides to so many students and meet so many criterias. And generally speaking, full rides are for students who are from low income, marginalized students who are bright and can bring something new to the campus, or they have a very interesting, unique identifier. Okay. So with that said, the question to these families that have inherited money is, how do you want to put it in play? How do you want to use it? Do you want to save it for retirement? Do you want to pay off your bills? Do you want to eliminate?
Well, I think if it's a trust situation and it's earmarked for education, then they would have to use it for education.
Then they consider it like a 529 plan that they have to put it in play, or they're going to be penalized in a variety of ways. And we get away from the mindset, and I'll get back to what the form, which is the question, sorry. We get away from this eligibility for need-based money, because eligibility for need-based money from the federal government is a Pell Grant, and your income has to be at a certain threshold or below, a student loan, however it will be next year or the year after, or whatever Washington's going to want to do with it, college work study, 3 programs
Yeah.
that don't amount to a lot, and state schools. Okay. And we have to put it in play, and
But
we use
that's
the
all
right
FAFSA.
form. That's all FAFSA. FAFSA is an application that's used at every one of the schools in the United States and in Europe in some cases. Okay. If you want to get federal money, if you want to get state money that's in your state, a state need-based money, okay, and you want to
And you want to work study.
You want
Or
work study, you
love.
want your student to have a skin in the game. If you want them to have skin in the game, no matter how much you want, if you're going to pay for them, but you want him or her to have something that's in their mind that this just isn't a free ride. I have a loan that I'm going to have to pay back, so I should stick with it and graduate on time and keep my debt down, and financial literacy and everything that we want kids to be aware of. Then we have to file that financial aid form. And if we're going to apply to 250 to 300 other schools, all right, they're all part of the FAFSA profile, correct? So we have 3,600 schools in the United States that all take the FAFSA. And then about 250 to 300 others want the CSS profile. Some are 100% need-based. We don't do scholarships. I don't care how bright your student is. If they can get in on being bright, if they can get accepted for being bright, we're going to look at what your need is based on the financial aid side of the world. And we want both forms because the FAFSA only gives us a bare bone baseline bit of information. We want more. So FAFSA is here.
CSS profile is far more personally invasive than the FAFSA.
That's a very nice way of saying it. Yeah. So we want to know more about you so that we can consider whether we want to give some of our money. No matter how big our endowment is, no matter how big your student is, if you think your student should come to this school, the basic premise is that you need to be the one that pays, and we'll try to give you some money. Now, some of those schools do tease you with a little bit of a scholarship, okay? But you have to pay the difference. So if I'm a,
Do you think they would tease you with that scholarship if you didn't fill out either of these forms? Because sometimes that teaser is to entice a student to enroll.
Unless you tell the school that you don't need to apply for financial aid. If you don't need to apply for financial aid, you don't complete any of the forms. Okay, you don't have to complete the forms, but you're not going to get financial aid. You could still get a scholarship based on the student. But what I was saying is the schools that are 100% need-based, very few of them give a scholarship, and if they do,
for merit,
it's a small teaser. It's a small teaser. Okay, there are those that are need aware. So when we talk about these prestigious elite schools, there's need aware. We need to know what you're finding.
And there's need blind.
And then there's need blind. So those are the two core categories. Need aware is we need to know your financials as much as we need to know your student, because we're not going to take them either way unless we have both. And most of those need aware are 100% need based. So need aware, need blind, 100%, 50%, 0% need based money under their financial aid category. And people find that out by asking the questions when they go on tours or they sit in an information session. After they gobsmacked about the school and they're in love, they ask some real key questions. What programs are you going to cut? Are you going to be around in 4 years? And how do you distribute your money? How are you going to pay me to have my kid come to your school? And you say it politely with not a lot of piss and vinegar or anger, but you put it out there and you wait for the body language, not the answer. Okay. All right. So no, if I have enough money to cover the cost to send my child to a high caliber school or an elite prestigious school that just hit 100,000 for 4 years, that's $400,000. I check no, I'm not applying for financial aid. Don't expect any forms from me. But don't come back later on after you've been accepted and you start worrying about it and you've heard all these conversations and your neighbors and your friends are badgering you to go back and ask for money because there's no documentation. You're going to have to complete the forms then, and depending upon where you are in the timeline, you can get tracked.
Once the money's gone, the money's gone. If they've already promised the money to other students, it's just gone.
And they'll find out after the kids have deposited who they can shift and who they can't. And that's why you go back after you deposit to ask for more money. That's another conversation for another day. So if you're not going to apply for financial aid because you have the money to pay for school, you're in it from the beginning and you can't change your mind, so to speak.
But why wouldn't you fill out in as a parent, and if you filled out the CSS profile, some of the schools that do offer not even just teasers, but if they have an endowment where they could offer merit-based money, they're not going to give you that merit-based money if you don't fill out the CSS profile. But some schools require the FAFSA in addition to the CSS profile. So then you can't just fill out one, you have to fill out both.
Unless the school operates under the premise that they are a need-based institution providing aid only under the need-based category or the need-based business model, merit money is not part of the conversation. I can be applying to a school that,
Let's take UVA, that's need blind.
okay, so they're need blind. But how do they apply? So they're need blind, all right? And they require the FAFSA and the CSS profile.
Correct.
Because even though they're need blind on an admissions standpoint, they're not need blind from a financial aid standpoint. And because of the type of institution they are, they want full disclosure about everything that's going on in your household financially. And that's their business model. And if you don't like it, you don't apply there. If you like it, you apply, you conform with the forms that are required, and you have added to negotiate afterwards. Because what are you hiding? And that's part of it. That's part of it. What are you hiding that's not on the FAFSA? So the FAFSA is very core-based information. Income, household size, and income of the family that lives in that house, whether they're married or they're just living together, or they're divorced and one lives on the first floor and another one lives on the second floor, because that's the way they do it today. That's household income, household size, assets, not retirement, not life insurance, tangible assets. Okay. You don't even have to report how much you can contribute to your 401 now that they took that away. All right. So that school is getting some basic information to be able to make some decisions as to how much need-based money we're going to give. How much are we going to dig into our own pocket, dig into the alumni or the endowment to make the numbers work? Merit money from admissions, maybe some money from financial aid. And for those families that don't qualify based on the FAFSA, they're going to get a student loan. And then they should go back and have a conversation with the school. Why not me? All right. The CSS profile takes that information on, even though you've already done it in the FAFSA, but then now they're looking for your retirement, how much you contribute to your retirement, your home equity. Because if you want to come to my school and I'm willing to give you $10,000 in a scholarship and you have $400,000 in equity in your home, it's your choice to send your child to my school. So pony up, so to speak. Okay. I'm really getting into this. Sorry. It's your choice or don't come. And it sets up all of this difference in society. And some people can stay at JW Marriott and some people have to stay at Courtyard. So that's what the school wants to know. They want to know if you have a business. So now we have financial planners and individuals who are helping someone who has a business employ their students so they can do something with the income. They can do something with the revenue to bring some of these numbers down, to hide some of the information. CSS profile asks for some of that, and the people that are looking at it are trained to understand what that means from a standpoint of the family's resources.
So the question then becomes, is it even worth filling out the CSS profile for merit-based aid? And
Yes.
but it may not be for some families because they're
Separate merit. We got two screens running here. You're merit on need-based. Okay. You get the glory of giving the money. I'm the hard ass. Okay. Merit, unless the school is need aware, is up to the school looking at you as the candidate that they want to come to their school. whether you are getting 8,000 because you got a 3.0 and a 900 GPA, or you got a 4.0 and your 1,600 SATs. That's merit. That's not merit at a school whose business policy, whose distribution of aid policy is we need to know both sides of the screen. And we're only giving it to those to the neediest. Wink, wink. Get to know the school, have them get to know your kid. Do they want your need to be different than another family's need? It's not cut and dry. I can make $400,000, have more money in investments and have 3 properties. And the school can still give some of their own money under their policy as long as they're looking at the applications. So if you don't file them, they don't know it. You have no legs to stand on.
And if you try to file later, once the money's gone, it's gone. So if you file later, there may not be any money left to give to your student anyway.
Yeah. If I have 100,000 in my applicant pool and I'm dividing that pie, boy, that's going to be a smidgen of a slice, because they're putting it out there to see how many are going to come. And now it's May 6th. They're just getting to the point where they're starting to think about running their data. All right. Because if all their money comes in electronically versus paper checks, the middle of May, the end of May, they got to run their data, and they're going to go back to their applicant pool, and they're going to look at those that might be appealing for more money then. And they might be going to their wait lists because kids didn't decide to deposit. So you're behind the 8 ball. All right. Not a student loan, because that's coming, put your name on the paper, so to speak. So this idea of, I don't want to complete these forms, are somewhat driven by what's going on in the country. What's going on in the country with the White House and the administration and the lack of Congress. Okay, so people are just feared. They don't want their information shared. They don't know where it's going to go. They don't trust anybody. But they still want their kids to go to school. You can't have it both ways. Okay, and I've been in this business long enough to know that if we ever got to the point that someone in Washington, D.C. is looking for the information that's coming off on the forms that are given to the schools are going to have to go buggy. All right. They're already finding out the FAFSA information. If they start asking for what the schools are getting in the CSS profile information to identify individuals, I hope I'm been spread on the ocean by then. Okay. Because all hell should break loose. So there's a fear factor. I talk to people on the phone. I don't want to apply because I don't want the people to know what I have for information. You're not going to get past go. You're not even going to get $200. So what's the plan? What's the plan? The plan is, when my kid's a sophomore and we're looking to go into the junior year, we need to know that those numbers are already cut in stone. When I do my taxes in the junior year, that's the information for income. If I want to do anything with it, I got to start in 8th and 9th grade and work with a financial planner to legitimately change the numbers. Okay. If we're a couple and I can stop working for 4 or 5 years, our income will go down, our need will go up. And we want to file those forms. Now, the college that asks for the CSS profile, they may call and say, what's dad doing? And if the wrong person answers the phone and dad's driving for Uber, someone's not reporting information correctly. Okay. So we got to be up and up on everything. So there's no reason not to complete the forms. There's no reason not to complete the forms. There's every reason to complete them. It may not turn into money.
But
I will also say.
But it might.
Yeah, because I will also say, if we're now in the month of May and we were called to school before or after, and we're trying to get money through appeal, unless I have something in my system, even if there's money left, there's nothing in my system to be able to make an evaluation. And then behavior comes into it, and we get angry as the customer. And then the poor person on the other end of the phone or the Zoom call or the one-on-one meeting has been beaten up already because they've been trying to get their work done under adverse work conditions. It's better to be nice to bring a bag of candy or some cookies to those meetings. Okay, so yeah. I am an advocate for completing the forms. I'm an advocate for using them the right way. If I don't want to have my home equity exposed, then I'm not applying to schools that require the CSS profile. And if someone wants to know, they go to the College Board's website or they go to CSS profile schools and they'll get the list.
Yeah.
And beware. And there are some scholarship providers who want to know that information.
So this is a little bit on the other direction of this, but this year, I don't know if it was this year or last year that was the first year, but when they're considering total income now, this has changed a lot over the years. When my kids were both in college, we got a break for having more than one in school, and then they eventually did away with that. And then there was the situation of, if parents are divorced, we'll use the parent that the student lives with the most, and we use that income, but we're not going to factor in the stepdad's income, who's also in the house. But now that's getting factored in. And so it's getting harder and harder, I think, it's confusing because it changes a lot. But I think that's really unfair, because what if stepdad doesn't contribute at all to that kid's education, and now that kid has no resources to go to school?
Let's break that down a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, I don't like that word, or unpack. I don't like that word unpack. Let's unpack that a little bit. That's such a, you know that. You're the journalist in the room. Incidentally, you wrote something recently that I read about totally something else. About the airline pilots. So the people who work as a result of Spirit Airline, you wrote. It was a very good, very nice piece. I said, do some more of that. Okay. Anyways, let's break this down. Family of husband and wife married, both income. FAFSA or CSS profile. Okay. Widowed, single from the start, mom or dad, one parent. Okay. Widowed, single from the start, finds a partner who moves into the house. Household income.
Wow. They don't even have to be married.
Household income. All right. They're a partner that lives in that house. Household income. Okay. And FAFSA only. FAFSA only. All right. If we go to a CSF profile school, same scenario. It's household income. Okay. Because you should also reporting the size of the household includes the partner that's living there. All right. So it's kids, mom or dad, and the new guest that's living in the house. Okay. So if you have a boyfriend that you want to move in with or marry, and right now, if your kids are looking at FAFSA only schools, wait until their junior year and have at it. Okay. Because that's the information. It's only the person that's the parent that's in the house. All right. The other thing that changed with divorced and separated families of the FAFSA is that it went from who the student lived with the vast majority of time to who the student receives the most financial support from 51% of the time in the year. So you need to get technical or detailed for the FAFSA, all right? Because if I'm living with dad and dad provides all the support and mom is gone, then I'm using my income.
And they don't look at mom's income at all.
They don't look at mom's income at all. FAFSA running.
Dad moves a girlfriend, and then they look at girlfriend's income.
Yes, because it's a new household income. Okay. I live with dad. Dad gives me food, drives me to school, pays for baseball, but mom pays the mortgage, pays the taxes, and contributes child support to income. Okay, because there's a layover. All right.
Yeah.
So that's FAFSA only. Divorced and separated is a whole other ballgame. So FAFSA only, divorced and separated, same thing. Who you live with, who you receive financial support with 51% or more time out of the year. Divorced father, is there child support? That's reported on the FAFSA. Then we know that there's child support. But it's not dad's income. It's not dad's investments. It's none of their business. FAFSA only school. They don't want to get into that. All right. But then you bring on the other form called the CSS profile, and they want to know everything. So divorced and separated, we know the parent as the non-custodial parent.
And that person would have to fill out those forms as well. And so if a student is in a situation where they don't have a relationship with that parent, that could become a huge problem.
There is a waiver. There is a waiver. CSS profile, non-custodial parent waiver. Okay. But it's going to have some good teeth to it. It can't be dad doesn't like mom anymore and they got divorced, but I see dad every weekend.
No, but if the student hasn't seen the parent in years.
In a God's age, they fill out the waiver form, they schedule a meeting with the financial aid office, and they have a one-on-one, heart-to-heart conversation. They don't do it over the phone. They don't do it through a Zoom call. They get in the car, they go to the school, they have a meeting. The schools are not heartless individuals, okay? They just need to know what we're looking at from the standpoint of what money is out there. They're not heartless individuals. Financial aid people listening, I cut my teeth with you people.
Yeah, they want to help.
Right? But they want to help, but they need to know because there's a sense of being fair and equitable across the board. And the only way we can be fair and equitable is to get the information. Otherwise, we're guessing, and we're not going to guess. Okay, so non-custodial dad has nothing to do with the child, has not provided anything, doesn't work with them. The parents don't talk to them. The kid doesn't talk to them. They're basically out of it. You fill out the waiver, you give the dad's information, and if the school wants to call and find out why you're an SOB, they'll call. The problem is people don't want to go that far, or they're intimidated, or they're scared, or,
or they don't know that they can. They don't know that they can.
The waiver is right on the waiver is right on the CSS Profiles website.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of students and parents are under the impression that maybe I should stay out. I should just stay in my own lane. I'm just the applicant. I don't talk to these people when they should be talking to them. They should,
Schools set it up. They said, with all due respect, schools, you set it up the wrong way and you're still abiding by the wrong way. This is a family process. It's amazing. How many parents call you and say, little Susie or Stevie has been doing all this and they picked the wrong school or they didn't talk to us? How many parents don't engage their kids? I have one that I'm forcibly making that they meet together. I schedule periodically calls with the mom and dad and the son just so that they're part of the conversation. Right. But I cringe when someone says, I'm letting them do everything. Good, let them pay. And you stay out of the picture. Okay, and you stay out of the picture. And what the schools do right from grade 9, I'm getting ahead of myself here, all right? But from K through 8, schools will call parents. They'll tell you the kid's a little bugger. They'll tell you the kid's a great kid. They'll talk about lunch that didn't come. But once they hit 9, these are little Johnny and just Stevie and Tommy are adults. And we're only going to talk to them, and it's up to them to bring this information home. When the kids were little, what was the first thing you did when they came from school? You rifled their backpack to see what was in there. Was there a note from the teacher? Is the lunchbox empty? I see my grandchildren doing it, my son and daughter-in-law in North Carolina. But when they hit 9th grade, we have this expectation that the kids are going to tell the parents. No, they're not. And if you're not having family dinner and you see each other blowing in the wind, no one knows what's going on. So you're going to let them plan their college or their career school path or what they're going to do after high school in a vacuum? I'm sorry. So schools, the colleges, have maintained the same thing. That's why I spend a lot of time with my clients, my kids, basically running a sales campaign as the student is the commodity to be promoted. We write an email, they introduce themselves, they have a resume, they make scheduled meetings, they see them at college fairs, they shake hands, they talk because I'm part of it. But we're also introducing the parents because no little helicopter parents shouldn't be calling admissions and saying, why shouldn't you take my child? But if there's something peculiar and the student isn't revealing it, then someone's going to tell them. And the same be said on the financial side. So schools have got to start shifting, and I think they will, not the 200 or the 300 to get more applications than they have seats for. But the small, medium range ones, those that are going to get hit by the demographic cliff and everything else, their admissions people should be calling home and talking to everybody. Learn what's going on. The family is buying the product, and the product is your school.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, don't.
You know?
Because this is important stuff for parents to hear, because
And parents, be delicate. Turn the blades down. Reveal everything that's going on, understanding that schools want to put cheeks in their seats and they want to be able to help people pay for it to the point they can. But the underlining principle is we as parents are paying. We as parents are using the resources that we have. And if the school doesn't have enough, and we don't, then plan B or C needs to come into the picture. And that may include going to college, community college, working and commuting to school, going into the Corps, volunteering, taking time off. For some reason, I had a dream the other night that we should really have a 13th year
of service.
Forget about sending kids to college in their 13th year. Have a year to find yourself, get settled.
I think it should be a year of service. I think they should either do military service or AmeriCorps or Peace Corps or
Job Corps,
some sort of,
Corps.
Job Corps. Yeah. I would love it. I would love it. I think college is, I don't run the world, so I can't make this change, but I think college would better serve college students if the students were a little bit older and had some life experience and vocational experience to make a decision about a major.
Yeah. And what's a year? You got to prevent 18 to 1900 kids who go into the ER in October for alcohol poisoning. You're going to have less driving cars around on campus, injuring themselves and others. The maturity level isn't necessarily the thing. And I guess if I can do anything to help identify that maturity level and say to a family, hit the pause button for a year, you're still going to be fine. Schools are still going to be looking for students. Another year under the belt. But we're so driven continuously to go, and maybe because I have different perspectives of different students and different things. But back to your initial question.
But I do think that maturity levels increase with service.
Yeah, but you can't go in the military for a year.
No.
Unless you say to
we'll just do
I got a mental issue, I want to go home. There for at least.
A great idea. Yeah. So, but Job Corps, any of those would be a good idea. I'm sorry. But service is an anecdote to depression and anxiety. And that's what a lot of these students these colleges are seeing such an increase in all of that right now. And service is really a great anecdote to that. So I think that year of service would be so great for everybody for so many reasons.
Yeah. I think we're going to see some changes coming along, shorter degree programs, more robust 2-year programs, 2-year programs like the Galliano Institute in New York, where you're taking classes, but you're in the thick of it. So it's co-op from the beginning. I think co-op is a great thing to be doing because kids need to learn with both sides of their brain. That's why woke school is good. And parents, let's be less driven, influenced, manipulated by what we think everybody needs. I had a conversation the other day. You got to go to this college because I can only get a job at financing at this particular company. There's how many hundreds of others that want to know, is your child a creative thinker? Can they communicate? Can they look you in the eye when they're talking? Can they shake hands and write with some semblance of literature? Come work for me.
Yeah. And I think it's funny that they call those soft skills. Push back on that every time because I don't think there's anything soft about them. They are fundamental to professional success.
Or they say that it's part of the student's executive functioning, lack of executive functioning. Please. It's called accountability. It's called getting to work on time. 15 minutes before you're on time, you're late. That's why student athletes and dancers and performing arts students do very well because they have a lot of accountability.
A lot of discipline.
They have a lot of discipline. So let's start in 8th grade with discipline. No, everybody doesn't get a trophy. I'm sorry. The Celtics lost in Game 7 because they didn't perform, right? And you move on and you learn why. You've heard it from me before. If you live in your own bedroom and use your own bathroom, and you can go to camp, go to overnight camp and live with another group of students, you're going to learn about different social environments and social experiences, and you got to come out better.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier that I want to ask you about.
All right.
You said something in FAFSA about some European schools. So I want to talk about that because I'm seeing more and more students applying to European schools. And I didn't realize that some European schools use our FAFSA.
Yes, yes. Go to I'd have to think of the link. Anyways, yes, there's a certain cohort of international schools that want to award their money, their need-based money, using the United States system. Or you are a U.S. citizen and you want to go to school overseas, and the school is considered an eligible institution, then you can get a student loan or a Pell Grant, take that money with you.
Okay.
But under the new administration, that window has got a little bit tighter, unfortunately. Okay. So there is a list. If you Googled international schools eligible for federal student aid, you would get the Excel spreadsheet. How up to date it is, I'm not sure. I look at it every year. Ireland, England, that European country they're very proficient. The people are trained, they understand it, they're operating that way. Kids are going over there. And there's more and more conversation about students coming from a dual enrollment or dual citizenship family that they're going to go to school overseas.
That's another conversation. So does that work?
Some it does. But you got to have a real mature student. Because heck, they're not a 2-hour plane ride away. They're 6 or 7 away. Okay. And they're coming back in. So if they're coming from a family that is international in nature, where they go overseas on a regular basis to see aunts and uncles and cousins, and they can speak the language, they're fine. They're going to be fine. But if they're using it as a way to escape the United States system, it's not going to work. Try Canada first. But the other part of it is not all these schools are willing to give money. So most of the time you're going overseas, either as a dual citizenship because you can claim residency, or you're paying out of your own pocket. Okay. So be careful about that. And that's Canada too. So I would be careful about that. Okay. When you're applying, you're asking about how we're going to pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're looking, remember,
we're purchasing higher education. Higher education, college and career schools. We're making a purchase. So how are we going to do that? What if all of this went away? What if all of this went away and the only way we could go to college was on a euro dime? What would that picture look like? That's 1957. I wonder if it would start deflating some of the cost.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Because number one, a school could no longer rely on getting $36,000 from every applicant out of the government in a student loan, or $24,000 in a Pell Grant. It would then rely on the quality of the education. It would be outcome-based. It would be how long it took to get the first job and how you maintained that. So we got into this business of providing assistance because we wanted to have an ability to supplement families, to send kids to college, to send kids to career school, so that we could have an advanced workplace, intellectual workplace.
And I'll tell you, I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but I am one of those students who benefited from there being safety nets and systems out there to help students. So where I graduated high school, it's the longest running place-based scholarship in the United States. So there was a man who lived there who died, and he left his entire estate in this fund. And I went as a recipient of that fund. The trustees only touched the interest, and he paid for a third of my school, which I wouldn't have been able to. Just wouldn't have been able to do it if it hadn't been for that fund. And they're actually making a movie about this fund. They're starting filming this week. I'll send you a little bit of information on it. It's pretty interesting.
You're going to have a part in it?
What do you mean?
You're going to be in the background?
Oh, I'm not part of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just one of the recipients, and I'm a big fan and a supporter. When I was in grad school, I wanted to do my thesis on this man, but I chickened out because at the time it was my stepdad who was on the board of trustees, and I didn't want to disappoint him. I didn't want him to read my thesis and for it to not be
His
good.
expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was really happy when this other man, this is an Oregon State professor, came in and decided to write the book. And then some producer saw the book and said, hey, I might maybe want to make a movie on this. And so that's where it's turned into now. But so all that to say, I was the recipient of something, because if it all went away, it would be great in some ways, but there are some students out there who could really benefit from some help. And that's what the money is supposed to be there for. But it's turned into this big, that happens a lot in this country.
We had it with the boys, we had it with the home industry. You can't buy a house in New England. I live in Massachusetts. It's almost ungodly. So your kids move to North Carolina and set up camp down there. And then grandparents have to travel there. So my mother, God rest her soul, she used to complain about it's not like the old days where, 3 people, 3 family members lived in the 3-decker and everybody took care of each other. That went away. And please, whoever's listening to this craziness that comes out of my mouth, please be assured I am out there trying to get everybody to go to the right school for the right cost for the right reason. I am a product. My blackboard, all right, is indicative of the school I started my education back in the day. And my father, I'm a second-generation higher ed guy, okay? My father worked for Job Corps. He worked at a reform school for boys. And yes, he was lucky enough to get on with the government and the Department of Education when it was health, education, and welfare. And then it spun into education. It was part of the early generation of writing the rules and enforcing the rules that we now have, the Higher Education Act of 1965. Okay. So it was always, let's do what's right for the family, for the student. Let's help them as best as we can. I grew up in that. I still believe in that. But we have become a system that is so driven by the emotional, the social, the in our hand, that we can't step back and say, you know what? We're doing the right thing for our family. And if that means my kid's not going to a school with 3 alphabets on their name or in a building that's sky high and they're going to graduate in 4 years and it's going to be affordable and they're going to get a job and they're not going to move home and they're going to have kids, then what's wrong with that?
It's the backyard barbecue.
Capability, if we do have the capability by the people that the inherent money that's coming down in the example we started this call about, then great. But not everybody has that. We all, 4 kids, I always tell a story. They knew when there was steak on the table that something good was going on in our house because most of the time, my wife's an amazing cook, but most of the time when she was working on the weekend and I was taking care of the kids, it was mac and cheese because that's all Dad could figure out how to make. But my point is that every family is different and we go through highs and lows and we can't compare ourselves to everybody else.
Right. And that's we've talked about that before. The backyard barbecue becomes the hardest thing for parents because doing sometimes what's right for your family gets really hard to talk about with the people around you who have all these other expectations for your family.
I didn't get to go to National Honor Society. I didn't get to go to the pre-commencement activity. I didn't get to go to this because if your kid's going to be a plumber when they're my age and they got a crew and they're living in Florida or Arizona and they're dialing in to check and see who's working and who isn't, who did better? Who did better? But 30 years, dial it back 30 years, we're torturing ourselves. I do a thing with all of my first year students, and I'll be calling them probably in June. Tell me something that you've learned about when you went that you want to tell yourself if you were starting again.
If you were doing from the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, so parents, go to those barbecues, go to those activities, and celebrate the fact that your child's going to where they want to go and where you think they're going to be the best.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
and
I lost a full-time job because I switched the graduation list from the prestigious to the community colleges. But anyways, sorry, you were going to say, cut that out.
You've talked about that before. I don't know that I've always cut it out. I was a first gen, and I didn't realize that was a thing when I was in college. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't know if colleges knew it was a thing. But as I go through this work now, everything that now that we realize that first gens need support with, I understand, oh, that's why I was struggling. That's why at the time, I thought it was just me. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was like actually a thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And there's no playbook. There is the pivotal college years workbook, college planning workbook. But just like when you have a child and you leave the hospital, yes, there is that workbook. But even when you leave the hospital with your first newborn child and you are so nervous, there's no workbook. Maybe you've read T. Barry Brazelton and you're up on things beforehand. He was a great guy that we followed, okay? But there's no playbook in this business, all right? And when they go off to college, we expect them to be outstanding college students. And that's why we talked to Maya the other time. There's a lot of things that can happen. So break it down, families. Put it in realistic expectations. Smile and wink at your friends and neighbors, but don't necessarily think that they're following the right path too.
and it goes beyond that about thinking about they're following the right path. But a lot of times I've discovered in this process, people lie.
They write books and they lie.
I've had students lose friends in this process because their friends are not telling them. And I've had sometimes parents will tell other parents things that aren't exactly the whole truth of it. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people aren't always even telling the truth. And yeah, but it's really a time for parents and students to hone in on what's right for them and their family and just tune out all that other noise.
Yeah. And let's be realistic. There aren't a lot of crazy people that are out there willing to just give it out there. Okay. Like me. I'm at the point in my life where I think I've always answered questions honestly and realistically and truthfully, and maybe sometimes not pulling back the curtain 100%. I will pull it back now 100%. But let's be honest. I go to an information session at a college and listen to the presentation. It's a presentation to get you to apply. Okay. I go to a financial aid planning meeting at the high school and there's a lender talking. They're giving me the information to apply for the loan. Okay. You go to orientation. They're giving you all of the information so that you can now transition to college. Maybe not. They forgot about the health waiver. And now all of a sudden you get a bill and it's got another $6,000 on a health waiver, on health insurance that the school's now charging you, but it's past July 1st and you can't get the waiver in. So it's not so much the fact that the information isn't being told to you. It's maybe being held back because there is a business model that's driving the conversation. And if there's anything I can do, positively disruptive, to break some of that down, and I guess I do it when talking to you because you let me go off on tangents. People need to know that. So parents,
that is why we do this.
Ask the question, why? You go and get your car fixed. You need 4 new sets of brakes. Okay, change it. $10,000. Or do you say, why? Show me the brakes. Maybe I go get a second opinion.
And when I severed my ACL, if you go to a surgeon, they want to do surgery. If you go to a physical therapist, they want to do physical therapy. If you go to a chiropractor, they want to, make an adjustment so that it just depends on who you ask.
You go to the ER to have your bones set. That person is going to call you because now you're in their pipeline. You thought they were working for the hospital. No, they have their own private practice. And they're looking to follow up with you so that they can take you on as a client. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's called lead generation. And there's a lot of that going on.
But it is nice to be aware of that situation so that you understand.
Why does my postal person constantly deliver view books and guides from colleges and career schools? And why do I get bombarded with emails from schools I don't even know exist? That's a question I'm asking to the parents that you can text us or email us with an answer. Why is that mail coming to you and you don't even know those schools exist? Awareness is important. Find out why.
Yeah.
That's the question. Where did it originate from? Who got my name?
And how did they get it? And was it sold, or was it shared, or how did that happen?
I'm a little peculiar. When I'm signing up for things that I know might be a lead generation, I will use my first initial and my middle name. Or I will use Chauncey Gardner, little Peter Sellers, Pink Panther character. Because when the mail starts coming or the emails start coming and they're addressed to Chauncey Gardner,
Now,
I'm picking up the phone and calling the organization and say, why did you share? Well, you didn't read our privacy statement. And our privacy statement says, and everybody that gets connected with me through my emails knows my privacy statement says, if I encountered you, I'm going to add you to my email list. You may not get a newsletter every month because I haven't written it, but you're in my pipeline. So that's full disclosure. But the fine print of who's sharing what information is so small, no one's going to read it. Okay. But the answer to the question is because your information, your son's information was bought off the PSATs, the SATs, and the ACTs, and we're running late. And the thing I will say is if kids taking the SATs or the ACTs, do not disclose grades, test scores, GPA. Keep it in your pocket. Even if the proctor says, hey, everybody gets 4 free sends to your favorite colleges. Hold that money, hold that information back. Anyway, so the answer to the question is fill out the financial aid forms. Don't fear it. Use it to your advantage. Good topic. You're lovely because you let me rant and rave, but I'm sorry, I ran and rave.
well, we got to get that information somewhere.
Yeah, so buy the Pivotal College, buy the Pivotal Workbook.
Yes, I'll put that.
A lot of the craziness that comes out of my mouth is in that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Enjoy your day.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
All right. And keep that smile.
Okay. All right. Have a great day.
Bye.